everybody. I want to welcome you to Tea Time at the Apothecary. I'm TQ. This is my brother JQ. We come at you live every Wednesday and Friday from Chicago on Facebook Live and other platforms. And we use this time to have a cup of tea, catch up with each other, talk about life, connect with our customers, talk wellness, geek out on products, and interview really interesting people. And today is no exception. We have some amazing special guests, and today we have Dr. Ken Redcross. So I'm going to ask him to join us and maybe read a little bio about him. So get your questions ready. Hey, Dr. Ken, how are you?
Hello there, guys. I'm missing the Q part. I am just Dr. Redcross, but I like the TQ and the JQ. Very cool stuff.
Yeah. Thanks. We can make you an honorary one today.
We were not blessed with as easy of a name to spell as Redcross.
All right, fair enough.
Growing up, everyone was like, Q, just those Q brothers. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
So I'm going to, Dr. Ken, I want to read a little bit about you. So this is, you have an impressive bio. So you're the author of Bond, the Four Cornerstones of a Lasting and Caring Relationship with Your Doctor, which is really cool. You're founder of Redcross Concierge, a personalized medical practice designed to enhance the patient-doctor relationship while providing convenient access to a full spectrum of healthcare services and holistic and wellness counseling. That's right up our alley.
Nice.
And then you earned your medical degree from Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York, specializing in internal medicine.
That's right. Many moons ago, guys. Many moons ago.
Well, I'm right there with you. I was going to say, I know I'm getting old. It's like I passed the athletes are all younger than me days a long time ago. But when I see doctors who are published authors who have books younger than me, I'm just like, I'm getting old.
No, I understand that. Let me tell you guys, it's interesting. I never thought as being a practicing physician that I would ever be a writer, guys. But, I was really passionate about this patient-doctor bond and relationship. It's even more important now that we deal with the coronavirus, I'm learning. And so it was a little bit prophetic in a way. So, it's a blessing I was able to kind of put that together a couple of years back.
Yeah, no, I think I'm excited to talk about that, and I have lots of questions for you, but I want to start out with tea if we can.
Sure.
I hear you're a tea lover.
Oh, yes. A big tea lover in the Redcross household. So right now, everyone, I have an Earl Grey from Australia. I'll save you a really bad Australian accent.
Okay.
But in any case, it's one of my favorite teas. So this was a perfect show to be on, guys. So I'm excited.
Cool,
Nice.
cool. Jay, what are you drinking?
I am drinking rosemary. I'm still my back. I've been having some back issues, so I'm staying on these anti-inflammatory herbs right now.
Nice.
Lots of turmeric, lots of rosemary. Anything that I would put on a pizza is going in my body right now. So
nice. And some good data around that too, JQ. I'm glad you mentioned that. I talk to patients a lot about putting a nice fresh sprig of rosemary in with their tea in particular. It's medicinal. So it's cool to hear you say that and know about that already. It makes sense of what you guys do, but it's nice to hear.
Yeah, and for me, we're going into the last 2 weeks of a huge software overhaul in our business from everything that's going on. So I find I'm getting super tense, and so I'm drinking I'm a huge traditional tea lover, so like green tea, black tea, you name it. But today I'm drinking a triple lemon, so it's lemon balm, lemongrass, and lemon verbena. Kind of uplifting, chill me out, get me focused kind of feeling, because I have a day of Excel spreadsheets and technical conversations ahead of me after this. So the fun stuff,
So you have a good tonic over there too, a nice one.
Yeah. So Dr. Ken, you are, you sort of have this book and a book about patient-doctor relationship, which I am fascinated about because I think it's really hard, right? That's something that I would say majority of people I know are struggling with, feeling like they have a meaningful relationship with their doctor.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, guys, on average, especially when I wrote this book, the average time that you got with your doctor was about 7.5 minutes. And I don't know about you guys, but 7.5 minutes isn't enough, not only just to talk about what's going on, but what about how are you? How's your family? How's your spirit, as I like to say?
Yeah.
And so, I started to kind of dial back, or actually step back, I should say, and say, what are the things that are important in that relationship? And it's trust, respect, empathy, and communication. And as I said before at the top of the show, I have found out that those all four are equally important when we're dealing with the coronavirus and making sure during the beginning of the virus, everyone, I make house calls. That's the part of my concierge practice. Everything I do is kind of virtual. And so going into the homes of patients who were diagnosed with the coronavirus, who were refusing to go to the hospital and wanted to die at home if they had the opportunity, as opposed to go there into the hospital. I'd never seen that in 20 years of practice. So kind of my whole patient doctor relationship and love of that relationship really was put on steroids during this particular pandemic.
Yeah, I can
Wow.
imagine. That's got to be really intense. I guess, a concierge practice, just to kind of get a little bit more on your background, I have an idea of what that means. And I feel like I just have been, I listen to a lot of health podcasts and things. So I kind of hear concierge practice is like really a trending sort of term. But for those people who may not have heard of this before, can you give the quick summary of what that means?
Sure, everyone. So look, concierge practice is just pretty much like a concierge when you go to the hotel. When you go to the hotel concierge, you want him or her to show you the best restaurants and give you the best experience. And that's exactly what my practice and concierge practice is. It's really on your time. It provides access, convenience, and time with the doctor. I started it back in '07, really before I even knew this trend was coming. I just knew that it fulfilled me and what I felt my purpose was, but most importantly, it made patients happy and allowed me to get into the souls of the patients as well. So when you're thinking of concierge medicine, everyone, it's really healthcare on your terms and to really get that access, because I always feel that a doctor should feel like a member of your family. And that's what a concierge practice allows me to do.
That's great. And you said you're coming in virtually. So is that your primary means? Or are you literally going into their homes? So, I'm just trying to understand kind of, is it a split or is it all virtual pretty much?
You know what? Actually, when I say virtually, I should actually say it's a little bit of a mix, because I typically make house calls, guys. So I usually am right in the home, or I go to their work or to their office and that sort of thing. I mean, at times, if we have to, we'll do a video, only if it's HIPAA compliant. But lots of times, I love that in-person thing. I don't know if it's the only child in me or what, but I need that contact,
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yeah. We got people watching. I just want to say hello to our father Abdul, who is a huge, he's a sort of veteran and major
Nice.
figure in the sort of evolution of this kind of holistic view of healthcare in the United States. He's been, a pharmacist in this kind of bridging this gap for 40 some years. So he's watching. John, hello. I see Boron is on, and Boron USA they sent a message to you, Jay, saying you need to be using Arnicare on your back.
Oh,
I would
good.
imagine
Yes.
you have one.
I
I
am.
like that. I like
I am
that.
I'm using arnica on my back, and I'm taking a mag glycinate. I'm
Yep.
taking an anti-inflammatory herbal blend from Irwin or something, Inflamiless, I think it's called,
Okay.
and I'm taking wobenzime as well right now, which is a proteolytic enzyme blend. This is not a chronic issue for me.
Yeah.
I sustained an acute injury. I do Ninja Warrior style workouts, and I
Yeah.
did some flips in the air and landed a little funny with my knees locked out, and so I got a little compacted in my spine.
Ay, ay, ay. So even though it's even more important to use arnica now that it's short term, right?
Yeah,
And it also help with any of the bruising that kind of goes along with that too.
yeah.
Yeah. Not to, this isn't about us, but I jammed my finger playing basketball with my brothers and my sister-in-law, and it's still messed up. And so I've been using arnica
Nice.
topically and internally
Yep.
for that as well. So that's a good segue. I guess, you are a physician, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
but you have been working, you became somewhere along the way, you became interested in homeopathic medicines and kind of have become an advocate for homeopathic medicines. And I'd like to hear a little bit about your work in that regard.
Yeah, a major advocate, and it's so funny just how life happens and your career happens. I trained here in Columbia, and I went out to Los Angeles, and it was when I went to Los Angeles, was as you guys know, I trained here in Columbia. I'm a Western trained physician, but it was when I went to California where I kind of saw the light, and I saw patients that were getting better without me necessarily having to write a prescription, and that was novel. And I was learning, like, well, what was that? It's funny. Well, not that funny, JQ. Sorry about your back, but it's funny that you mentioned Arnicare, because that was one of my first exposures to homeopathy. It was a little different in that my second practice in LA was in Beverly Hills. So we had a few people that did some plastic surgery, just a couple, and they did their plastic surgery, but they always would get Arnicare when they left. And they would come to
Yeah.
the office, they were swollen, they were bruised, but they were putting this cream on. And I was learning as a physician, a new physician, about Arnicare and about homeopathy and about how that makes a difference. What am I going to do with that as a Western trained physician, right? Write a prescription for what? This is when homeopathy has this beautiful space for those minor conditions that we get each and every day from the bumps and the nicks and that sort of thing. So it's funny that you mentioned Arnicare, because that was my first exposure. And then from there, I
Wow.
started to learn about oscillococcinum around the flu season and so forth. So that's how I kind of got into it. It was almost by happenstance.
I think
Yeah.
for a lot of us who have kids,
Yeah.
a big thing for us was we wanted for those kind of day to day and even seasonal things. If it wasn't a big chronic issue, we wanted like a quick kit,
Yeah.
to
Yep.
deal with those kind of things. So it's like cuts and scrapes and bruises. I wanted that's how it started for us was calendula ointment,
Yep.
arnica, oscillo, when you started to feel achy, but once a week, even if you didn't, from
Yeah.
October to March,
Yep. Yep.
um,
Exactly.
Yeah.
and so for us, it was like, that was the best. And when I use it on my kids, I know there's a lot of homeopathic skeptics out there, but I just want to say when I use it on my kids, they don't know what I'm giving them.
Yeah.
You know?
Good point. Good point. That's right. That's right. No, you're right. And it's interesting you mentioned that as far as skeptics and so forth, because guys, don't forget, I am I mean, Columbia in and out, Columbia blue, as
Yeah.
I always say. That's not a place that's necessarily so open to these things. But to your point, I saw it work. And especially for my children, guys, that's the important thing. Number one, the thing I love about homeopathy, it's been around for 200 years. So it's been around darn near forever. The second thing, it's safe. And that was something that was very interesting during the beginning of my practice, where I had children that were sick, and there were things that we couldn't give over the counter that were safe for them at the time for their cough. But then I learned about Chestol from boron and found out that's honey based. And as long as you're 2 years of age and older, there's some mega benefits there, whether your cough is dry or wet. And so
Yeah.
once again, it's those everyday things where, you can kind of almost manage them yourself without running into the doctor's office,
Mhm.
and know that there's safety, know that there's no drug to drug interactions, know that you don't have to worry about side effects. Look, that is such a big breath of fresh air for me, because so many things that I have to write on the Western side have side effects sometimes. And so things that you don't want to always be called about if you don't have to or want the patient to go through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I want to ask a question about that just to kind of, I won't dwell on
Hey,
this,
T,
but to
we've
put
got
it,
a lot of new people here. Well, you want to just tell everyone where we are, what we're doing?
yeah, sure. Once again, if you're just joining us, this is TQ and JQ, Tea Time at the Apothecary, on our regular Wednesday and Friday appearance. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Ken Redcross, a physician who runs a concierge practice, as well as an author. And we're talking today about all kinds of things, your relationship with your doctor, homeopathy as part of a healthcare program and ability to take care of yourself. We're going to get into some preparedness for flu season, maybe answer your questions if you have them.
That'd
So
be
please,
awesome.
give us some comments and let us know what you'd like to talk
Yeah, and we're seeing
about.
the questions, so if we don't get to them right
Yeah,
away, we'll get there. I promise.
Yeah,
yeah, we'll
that'd be
get there.
awesome if we could do
I
that.
do want to, while we were on the topic of the skepticism, all I want to do is, it's, not often that I get to ask a physician who is in the position of being an advocate about when you do have these people who are skeptics who start to get into like, well, molecularly this or that, what is your general answer? Because I'm a believer and user, I grew up with it. my homeopath passed away this year that I've had since I was a kid, and he's a lifesaver to myself and to my family. Dr. Scooby was his name, a really well-known prescriber nationwide. But I want to hear about, do you just sort of avoid it and just talk about the safety and use?
You know what, TQ? No, I never avoid it. In fact, to be honest, even when I'm on different TV shows, I've been faced with that question or like, doc, blah, blah, blah. Look, the best thing I do is I say, guys, try it for yourself. Try it for yourself, because no matter what I say, you're already a little bit of a skeptic. You feel the way you feel, but try it for yourself. Because look, once again, this wasn't my background. TQ, you were lucky in that you've had a homeopath growing up. It was different for me growing up. I knew nothing about homeopathy. And then I started to recognize that my twins, when they were 4 or 5, were getting better with Chestol, that I didn't have to worry about the package. I just saw it. I saw it clinically. I saw myself feel better with those oscillococcinum. So typically, I don't go into that fight mode. That's not even my personality. I go into the mode of love and just say, hey, look, let's dial back, man. And I want you to try it for yourself. And you tell me how you feel. And to the fact that there are some studies behind it. You mentioned oscillococcinum a couple of times. Look, there's a study that shows that 63% of people after taking it have a complete resolution of their symptoms or improvement. That's data. So it's out there if you look for it. So I never fight it. In fact, I love to talk about it, get deep in it and the thought process and say, look, let's dial back. And I want you to try a couple of these remedies for yourself.
Can we go like a little super nerdy on the science tip of it? Just because I think people are a little confused sometimes when they come in and they get a tube, a blue tube or a purple tube, right? And they see CH or they see CK. So can you maybe just speak to the numbers and the Hahnemannian and Korsakovian method, just like what that means, or what it means to the consumer more?
Well, exactly. And I'll talk about it to the consumer, everyone, because don't forget, I am not a homeopath. I am still a Western trained physician who learns each and every day about homeopathy. But what we do know is that homeopathy are highly diluted substances, whether it be a mineral or whether it be a plant. And we know that there is a quantum physics that's almost at play here. When it's so diluted that usually you could treat the issue or the symptom with what the symptoms would be for intoxication. So it's a little bit super deep. I don't want to get that deep, but I'll tell you, it's almost like a quantum sort of medicine. To the way actually homeopathy works by the serial dilutions, they're called, everyone.
And that's what the word actually means, right? It's like using the same against something.
That's right. Similars, exactly. Using similars, everyone. And that's one of the things.
So one of the things I wanted to know about. What?
I just want to tell a little story because my father-in-law, he's not with us anymore, but he was a chemist and he liked to tell sort of homeopathy jokes, because he's like, it can't work. And he and my mother-in-law were traveling in Spain and she fell. They were in their 70s. She fell and hit her face on the cement and came back with a crazy blue-black eye. And we saw them like a day or two later. And I gave them arnica. And he said, that's homeopathic. It can't possibly work. And she called me up like a day and a half later and was like, I cannot believe the improvement. And Martin would always say, well, I don't believe in homeopathy, but there is something about that arnica stuff. Like that was it was like he carved out a place out of his sort of like, I'm going to fight against it for like, but arnica, like there must be something else at play.
That is the gateway homeopathy remedy.
It is.
Arnica is the gateway homeopathy.
It is, but it's a great gateway, right?
It's so good.
It's so good. And that's the exciting part. That's one of the parts, guys, that I really enjoy, is when I expose my patients to it, when I see the benefits that they get. I have a lot of patients in the entertainment industry and so forth that travel all around. And I, just like you mentioned, TQ, I do some things that are maybe a little off label. I make sure before they get on the flight that they're taking an oscillo, a unit dose, everyone. They come in little pellets that you put under your tongue to dissolve.
Oh, my kids know. They're like, is it Sunday? It's time to take the little balls.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And that's the way it is with my patients. And they are on board and they say, Doc, once again, it's proof is kind of in the pudding. And so I love when you kind of convert some folks who were like myself, not understanding the science or the benefits of some of the remedies that we're talking about.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of arnica, Jeannie, one of our listeners, asked, and I know you can't probably give medical advice, but she's talking
Sure.
about tendonitis, plantar fascia. What should she do? And arnica is something, is not only, am I right? You can, arnica might be helpful, but for ligaments and things like that, would you maybe root to grav, or what would you suggest?
Well, guys, so when you're thinking of arnica in that way, that's when I kind of mix it, not only with just the topical gel, the ointment or the cream, but that's when I also take the pellets as well. Just because it's a deeper healing. When we're talking about arnica, it's deep tissue, right? That we're dealing with muscles, connective tissue, that sort of thing. So with something like that, that's when I would consider, and you're right, not necessarily direct medical advice, but I can tell you what I did for my daughter who's a gymnast with an ankle injury. Same sort of thing. She had Arnicare on board, and I made sure she was also taking the pellets as well. And once again, she got better, guys. And so that's what I would consider for that particular comment.
Okay.
Great.
You talk about your daughter. So, you know, we both, it sounds like we all have families with
Sure.
kids.
Sure.
I have teenage girls, and Jay has younger children, kind of three kids 6 and under.
Wow.
So
Wow.
homeopathy for children. I mean, that's another thing. You talk about arnica being the gateway homeopathic, but kids are sort of often the entry into this, kind of as Jay was discussing, because
Alpha CF, you know, like those kind of things, like the cold and flu remedies, all the things that
Yeah.
we've seen, that like these famous homeopathic remedies like Oscillo, like Chestol, that you're like, I have something I can
Yeah.
do at home.
Yeah.
It feels
Yeah.
so good.
No, it does. It does. And it's funny, we were mentioning gateway. So arnica is a big gateway. The second gateway for me is all of the cold and flu remedies that Boron offers, to be honest.
Cold Care is an
Yeah,
awesome one. Yeah.
yeah, the cold calm.
Cold Calm, that's the name.
Yeah, the cold calm, which are these little they're quick dissolving tablets, everyone. Once again, they're easy to take, great for kids that are 3 years of age and older. Once again, it's an easy medication. It doesn't require water if you're out and about. It's a little bit different because we're not traveling as much, but that was the other perk of the oscillococcinum, is that you don't need water to take that. And cold calm is very similar in that way, whether you have a runny nose or whether you have a stuffy nose or a minor sore throat. I say minor because sore throat with a fever is different. But the point is, that was another kind of gateway, everyone, for me on the child side. So I have twins, boy-girl twins. And once again, since they were younger, they're on a first name basis to the point they know what to do when their symptoms are coming, and they're, taking them out of the cupboard.
yeah, no, that's the same with my kids. And I would say, you talked about acute situations. Another area where I found, both for kids and for myself, is that it's also the chronic things that are low level and non-threatening, like the little irritation of post-nasal drip from allergies or something
Yes.
like that. It's like, I don't want to, I've taken everything. I used to suffer from such bad allergies in my life, and I didn't want to take the prescription drugs. I was
Yeah.
always dried out. I was always irritated. I just felt like there was something, I had my mucosal lining break down in my mouth with ulcers because of the drugs that I was taking.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so another area that I found is just like being able to sort of desensitize to some of the common allergens, where that may be like a half a year long thing, or for some people, it's like all the time that they're indoors, but it's not life threatening. It's not
Right.
awful. And some of the side effects of some of the things that might be prescribed actually cause similar or worse issues, you know what I mean? Like, than you're having from just having this constant drip.
Yeah,
Right?
you're right. And that's something that's kind of big in New York, guys. So when my practice was in LA, it was very different. I didn't get as much allergy. I mean, obviously allergy symptoms because, it's different pollination patterns. Back here in New York, it just started to remind me about how many people get allergies here, whether it be ragweed or what have you. But the point is that particular remedy that patients enjoyed was Cynocelia. which was another homeopathic. And to your point, it's not the nasal spray stuff. And as we're talking about homeopathic things, these are the things that we really, guys, need to sit back and think about these sort of things first, to make sure we nip these things in the bud, especially when you talk about oscillococcinum and flu-like symptoms, where getting on it early is important. But this is something that you can keep in your toolkit at home for not only your kids, but your family as well. So, you know, hey, if I'm getting that sinus stuff, sinus. If I feel like a little fluey, oscillococcinum. If the child
Yeah.
has a cough, whether it be wet or dry, you got to get on Chestol. So these are things that hopefully start to get interweaved into the family, so that we can know that we can consider some remedies that are a little more closer to the earth, as I like to say.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And I think that, the way we always describe it is like, and again, prefacing it with the idea of like, if you're really sick, go see a doctor like you
Right.
or your regular doctor. Go to an urgent care center if something's worrisome.
That's right.
But have a line of defense that is the most gentle things possible that you just have there to take so that you can avoid those situations if possible to begin with, right?
Right.
So like,
Right.
that's what I
You're the
love
first
about
doctor.
homeopathy.
You're the first doctor I've heard that's like, oh, I often recommend people put a sprig of rosemary in their tea. So, like that's pretty exciting to me that we talk about on this program a lot is that that strong doesn't always mean powerful. And that gentle can be the most powerful thing for you because it causes no harm. And that's really important to us as a family. And that's like our priority as a business too, is like, first things first, try the most gentle thing because sometimes that's the powerful move against what you have or for what you have, right?
No, you're right. And you're mentioning the rosemary sprig. Ginger is another big one. You mentioned turmeric as a big time anti-inflammatory, but ginger is a major one, everyone, when you're thinking about GI distress, which has been big. We're in a political season. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're
Are
on.
we? Are we? I
People are,
didn't
can you
know.
believe that?
I hadn't noticed.
So whatever side of the aisle you're on, people are stressed. And there's a lot of GI discomfort that goes with that. And so once again, chip up a little bit of ginger to put into the tea as well. There's a lot of medicinal things that we can do and treat thyself with a lot of these things. Now, back to your point, JQ, obviously you guys have a fever for over 48 hours. The child is lethargic, not looking like your child. That's an ER visit. That's your doctor visit. We're talking more of the kind of everyday, kind of small stuff that's more acute in that way, but not something that necessarily hits you so abruptly necessarily.
Yeah.
So
And I obviously you should say that because you're a doctor, but the reality is kids get sick a lot, but a lot of it is this minor stuff where it's like, mommy, my daddy, my sore throat is, my throat is tickling me. Or like, why do I keep on coughing a little bit because of the postnasal drip or whatever? Like, that's a huge part about for adults too. But it's like what we deal with, thankfully, for most of us, is not major illness all the time. It's
no,
these kind of like mild colds, things like that, right?
no, you're right. And especially when we're talking about our children. JQ, yours are still a little bit younger. TQRs are older, but when you're that age, it's just two words you need to remember, or maybe it's one word, and that's daycare. Because that explains why kids get 8 to 10 colds a year, guys, because they just touch and wipe and da da da. So, that's the time when I really found a lot of benefit for the children. That's just kind of helped my kids to get to these teenage years. But,
Building the
that's the
immune
reason why.
system, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I have a question kind of related to the current pandemic, which is like, do you have any thoughts? And I'm not asking for answers, but I'm just
Sure.
wondering if you have some thoughts on, I have little kids who are now not going and getting sick.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
the least sick year we've had in the history of my household.
yeah, yeah.
Are we what do you think we're gonna see? Like, are we gonna see that just delayed, and they're gonna get all those colds later when we do start to do in person stuff again, or is this potentially not benefiting their immune system in the long run? I just have questions about that,
No, I think it is. And this is the exciting thing to be on your show today, guys, because we're talking about a group of people who obviously are tuning in because they want to know about some of these alternative ways to stay well, especially during this coronavirus. Now, I think we may see something a little bit of a blessing in a sense, because never have we washed our hands as much, worn masks, and socially distanced. So the flu will be coming here and probably trickling in already towards the end of this month. The reason why that's important is that I'm wondering if our flu season is going to be a little less kind of deadly as it had been the past couple of years, which unfortunately was more on children. Now, the only issue is that the coronavirus is still circulating, as we're not going to have a vaccine at least until the end of the year from a lot of the scientists that I know who are kind of involved with vaccines and that sort of talk.
Sure.
So I say all that to say that we still have to keep a robust immune system throughout. So JQ, I think we're still going to build some of that immunity, even if we're home, because we still are out and about. The parents are still out and about. But I just hope and think that we're going to be a little less sick, but we still have to think of those things that help keep us up when those symptoms start, like the oscillococcinum, when that's the first sign you get symptoms. So it's important to jump on this stuff early. That's going to be the key.
Yeah, and I think implicit in your question, Jay, is the idea that all of it is good for building. But I'm not an immune expert, but I feel like I would be okay with just getting less sick less often, because like I think one of the lessons might be that, hey, you know what, during crazy flu season, like I'm not embarrassed. I would wear a mask even once this pandemic is done.
Right.
Going to certain things, it doesn't mean I'm going to stay away from everyone and stop hugging people. Like we all need hugs right now, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I think that like the risk to reward ratio is being rebalanced, and I would just be happy with like less sickness in my house all the time.
Well, I was talking to Greta the other night, and I was like, do you think that we'll ever go to the grocery store without a mask again?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like that is one of the major places we go every week. Actually,
it is.
No,
it is, and it's a good question and thought, because on another show they asked me when will we get back to back to normal, and like I said, this may be a little bit of a new normal. If you talk to any of your friends who are in Asia and other places, mask has been a big part of the culture. Period. When going to certain places, or we as Americans would see someone from another place with a mask on, or through the airport, and say, "What's the deal?" Well, it's going to be a little bit of that until even when the vaccine comes, because don't forget, guys, this vaccine issue is a little bit controversial, especially in all of our circles on the holistic wellness place. You have some people who don't necessarily feel great about them already at baseline before creating a new one as well. So it's going to be some time before we get back to that.
And that's not even to mention the actual effectiveness of vaccines has such a wide range. So we're like, that's coming from the assumption that it actually works for most of the people, but that may not be the case, right? Like flu vaccine is,
and calling it a vaccine,
50%.
Calling it a vaccine even is a little bit, it's a shot. And the flu shot, it mutates so quickly that it's hard to have a true vaccine like you have for polio, right? Like it's not the exact same issue.
No, it isn't. And no, don't forget, to your point. So the flu has a shift or a drift, everyone. That's kind of talk of what the flu is able to do. A good flu vaccine we've had is 30% benefit. Now, depending on what side you're on, the flu shot, whether it actually nails the actual virus, is supposed to decrease the severity of the flu should you get it. Now, once again, this isn't a talk of whether anti-vaccine or pro-vaccine. This is just a mention here that if that's not your thing, that's when I start talking to patients and saying, okay, look, if you have a belief, that's okay. But if you get flu-like symptoms, you need to know Oscillo, at least in my eyes. Or if you feel cold symptoms and you don't want that vaccine, that's not good for you, but regardless of our discussion, you need to know Cold Calm and Chestol to get you through the season at least.
Yeah. And I think that it's just more like, it's just facts about vaccines, like no judgment value. I would do it probably, but we want it to be safe. And then we want it to be effective, but all of those things are going to be questions that have to be answered still,
That's right. That's right.
I guess in this time, I want to talk a little bit more about flu, but I want to just take a detour because you're in one place. Someone who's listening right now and watching and is saying, geez, I want a doctor who thinks like this. I want a doctor who's going to take some time to be with me. Do you have any advice around, if they're not in New York where your practice is, what might someone do, either limited by budget or limited by geography, to get a better relationship with a doctor, or find a doctor where, even if it's not concierge, it has some of the aspects that you talk about in your book?
One of the things I do, TQ, because to that point, I have patients in Atlanta, Los Angeles, Quebec, Canada, for the same sort of thing, in that I'm not there necessarily physically, but I call it strategic advice, because I think that's the challenge with healthcare, everyone. We don't really have a strategy. You go in, you see the doctor, you get a diagnosis, you get a pill, you go home. But what's the strategy to keep you healthy? And so what I did was I set up a program called Strategic Advice, to where I do a small monthly retainer that's affordable, to where I'm there for advice, to say, you went to see the doctor, these are the lab results. Should I worry, doc? Or what should I ask my doctor in that visit? Or what sort of things should I be anticipating? Or I saw this study about the coronavirus. Does it make sense to you? You think it, means something to my family? So that's something that I've been doing to kind of touch all around the US and I guess the world now, with someone else that I have in Germany as well, that it's just that support. I love doing that because my whole point is I want to provide peace of mind. And then the second thing is I want to empower all of you out there listening and watching to say, you know what, my health matters. Regardless of how that relationship is, my health matters, and I want to be armed with good questions and good information when I go in and build that relationship even.
Yeah, this may not be the right language, but our dad Abdul, who's a pharmacist that I mentioned, he always tells people, you have to be your own doctor first.
Yeah.
And that's
Well
kind of what
said.
you're talking about.
Well
It's like,
said.
you have to, no one's going to advocate for you like you will advocate for you. But if you don't have the know-how or the knowledge and sort of some of the terminology and ammunition, let's be honest, like in these days of testing, the terminology is dense, and even the doctors sometimes have a hard time explaining, like LP little a versus, like I saw all these different terms.
Yeah.
It's like, gets pretty intense. So I think we have to be our own best advocates. And when you get 7.5 minutes, you better come on.
Yeah, no, you're better. And that's the whole point of what I do, is to be your advocate, the advocate for you, so that you're not there in the dark figuring out what's going on. I know how scary that feels, even for family members that have gone through things. And I'm like, why didn't you call and ask me? Oh, I didn't want to bother you, and that sort of thing. Well, I want to be bothered by not just my family, but just people in general, because I know how challenging the healthcare system is now. And it's even more difficult, guys, because I had patients who call me because they can't get into their doctor's office, or because their doctor wasn't back from COVID yet, or they don't want to go and wait amongst other patients. I mean, whole bunch of different things that are really, really important, that, you step back and say, you know what, my healthcare is important. And, we only do this thing called life one time, I guess, depending on how you believe.
As far as we can tell.
Exactly. As far as we can tell. So this is important stuff. So let's do it right.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the things, being that we come from a retail world, it's always very obvious to us that anytime you're interfacing with human beings that you are serving, that is a customer service position. In all professions have some element of customer service, and the doctors, and I would say medical industry, even more than most. And so to me, it was always a relief when I found, between doctor's office visits, or I was in the hospital with my youngest for a bunch of crazy stuff. But the ones that, the nurses and doctors that understood that, make you feel so good when you're going through a really already tender, raw feeling time. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right. And one of the other things I mentioned in that book that I wrote, everyone, is when you go in there with your doctor, I was going to say interview them, but I don't want it to be like, you hit this checklist. That's not what I mean. What I mean is I want you to go in there and let them know, look, I want to be a partner in my health. Can we do that? Do you think that's something you're interested in? And because that way, you know, guys, we get busy. In the typical medical practice where I used to work within, you're seeing 30 a day to make ends meet. And so it's hard to take a break to have that deep and insightful of a discussion. But believe me, if you're a patient out there, you're watching this and you go to your doctor or your new doctor, and if it's not going the way you want, say, you know, do you think we could just have an appointment just to talk? I want you to know who I am. We could do a 15-minute slot. I know there's a little copay for some, but the point is that just breaks the ice to a very special and different relationship that even the doctor would probably say, that's kind of cool. You know, I kind of, because believe me, most of my colleagues would love that.
They want to help.
Have that. They want to help. That's why we went into the
Yeah.
field. But some of those challenges of healthcare make it quite difficult.
No one really went into the field because they loved the idea of jamming in 30 patients a day just to make a living. That's not what drives people to go through all the years of medical school and fellowship and all the other you know, like doing your residency and all that. It's crazy.
No, it is. So, it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to give people the benefit of the doubt. And, you know, I love like sort of where economics meets reality, is that ultimately, if you're using this, like whether someone can see you or not, maybe they can use your service, you know, that you talked about with the advice, but even if they can't, because you can't help everyone who might want to do it, you have limited time too. That idea of having a mindset of interviewing your doctor in that way you're talking about, to say like, can I be a partner with you? You're going to know pretty quickly whether that's a reality. Yeah. And then you vote with your feet by walking over to another doctor if they're not going to get that. And that will actually change the medical profession. The reason, as far as I can see, the reason concierge practice is growing is because there's this growing recognition that like, hey, I need more than I'm getting. Right?
Yeah, there is. And the other thing, guys, as far as on that kind of interview process, is to think about the things that are important to you. And by that, I mean, look, I have a guy who's taken care of, he's this Wall Street trader. So he's this guy, he's always busy. I don't have time. So there's certain things that don't necessarily matter to him. He doesn't necessarily need all your time. He just wants you to be available. And so those are the things you ask your doc, like, hey, look, so I'm not going to take too much of your time, but when I need an appointment, are you around? What's your event? So those are the things that I want you to have a little bit of a checklist of things that are important to you. Or if you're a talker like me, my docs and so forth, they know that when I come in the office, we're going to get a couple of jokes, good or bad ones, but they're going to get a couple. And they know we're going to chat a bit. And just to make sure everything is all good with me, just spiritually, not necessarily on the religious side, everyone, but just spiritually, to make sure that your spirit is fed and that you're where you want to be in your life and in your health and that sort of thing. Those things are important.
Yeah.
Most.
Exactly.
Given that we're coming into a flu season, cold flu season, potential, you know, we're seeing already some bumps in the corona, and on, let's be honest, like on the spiritual side of maintaining some of our humanity during what can be very challenging and stressful. Can you give us a couple tips, your best tips about being ready for this fall and winter?
Yeah, guys. So look, we've talked about some wonderful remedies should these symptoms come on and so forth. But once again, we've talked about the hand washing, which is number one, always has been, even before the coronavirus was actually here, guys. We just didn't do too great of a job of it. The other thing that's important too is that spirituality, regardless if you're this deep thinker and that sort of thing. This is when I talk a lot about meditation. This is when I talk a lot about exercise. This is when I talk about thinking of food as medicine and what sort of those things, like JQ mentioned. He mentioned rosemary, that's medicine. So we have to think about what those things are for you that bring you that peace and joy, but you got to do more of them, especially now that we're in this coronavirus, we're cooped up. We're spending more time with our families than ever, which is great, but that's still a little bit different. You all still need your spiritual space to make sure you get a little bit of that. So that's what I would say, especially during this season, besides the medical component we're talking about, you got to be kind of spiritualed up to kind of deal with everything here. Because none of us, unless you're over 100 years old, have ever dealt with a pandemic like this.
Yeah.
I actually am 120. I take a ton of fish oil.
I see. You look good for your age. You look pretty good for your age.
I look very good for my age.
Yeah.
I
I
owe it
do.
all to Acilo and fish oil. That's it. That's all.
I've heard that more than once.
I have
I
a
am
question.
too.
So do you find that you just get like a ridiculously inordinate amount of trust up top because of your last name?
You know, I do actually. It's funny. It's a good question because I remember. You know, it's interesting, guys. So I'm the first doctor in my family. I never thought about Red Cross and the affiliation until I got into med school, and the professors would all make jokes. And it's interesting because my last name is a Native American last name. So as a kid, I remember going to powwows, a small tribe called the Monacan tribe. So it was always fascinating to me, but people have come to me and they said, you know, especially when I was in an employed model, I wasn't independent. They were like, I went through the book and I figured with the guy with the last name of Redcross, he'd
Yeah.
be a good guy. I got that a lot. So
I
it's funny
believe
you
it.
said that. It's funny you said that, but I didn't. I was like, well, I hope to kind of see that through, but thank
Yeah.
you, you know. So
You
it's
know, and
pretty
when it's
cool.
your name, you can avoid, I mean, anybody else even touching those two words together is going to have like trademark lawsuits on their hand.
Well,
Yeah.
look, guys, it's funny
I would
you said
imagine you might
that.
have had
I've
it.
gone through that. I've gone through
I
that with
believe it.
the American Red Cross. Can you believe that?
I
don't even
do
wanna-
believe that.
Guys, I won't even get into that right
Yeah.
now. But
So
let's
someday
just
off the
say,
record, I'll tell you my
Okay.
trademark story. I still have medical problems because of the sort
Oh.
of ulcers that it created.
Yeah,
So yes,
yeah.
I do believe you.
yeah, you got it. So let's just say they're not my favorite organization, and do some research before you. Anyway, let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at
No,
that.
I'm with you. You know, I guess we've talked a lot about the things you recommend. We talked about what you know, your sort of recommendations for people looking out for their own health and advocating for themselves. I guess I would leave this, you know, Jane, if you have other questions, but I kind of wanted to hear, like, how do people get to know more about you? We're going to link up your website,
Sure.
your book, etc. But if someone wants to follow what you're doing going forward, any new content you're putting out, where should they go?
So look, guys. So I'm Dr. Ken Redcross, whether it be on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. And I really mean this, everyone, or whomever is listening. Say hello. You know, say hello. If there's some questions and so forth that I can
I'm
answer,
following right now.
make things. All right, awesome. Really reach out and say hello. As I said before, we do this thing called life one time. And I hope to, you know, impart happiness and empowerment to all that I touch. When we came on here, guys, I get excited because spiritually every day, my goal, I know why I'm on this earth, is to touch as many souls as I can. And so I think that's going to be the important thing once again as we're getting through this flu and cold season, which is on its way. 3 important things to remember. Chestol, you get that cough, wet or dry. Oscillococcinum, flu-like symptoms in the early part, the first 48 hours. And then cold calm, when you start to feel the runny nose or the stuffy nose. Those are just things to, once again, guys, think about what you can put into your toolkit for your kids and for your family.
Just keep them in stock.
Yeah, exactly. I know. That's what you got to hope. To hope they're in stock. But the good
stock
thing
up
is
right now.
Yeah,
We
get
have
a
an area in
couple
our
now.
house.
We always keep 2 of each just in the cupboard, so you know, even if 2 people get sick, you got 2 boxes worth, and then you can start to find more. You know.
No, you're absolutely right. You know, they're that important, you know, as we go along with this. And then once again, guys, think about something that you all are doing for yourself, not for your family, not for your kids right now, as much as we adore them. I need you to look in the mirror and do something that makes you happy, something that you need that completes you. Because that's so important. That's what the coronavirus is causing us all to do. Look in the mirror and say, who are we? Where we want to go? So let's do a little bit of some self-reflection and enjoy what we've been given.
Yeah.
True that. That's beautiful.
Cool. Dr. Ken.
I don't think we could end it on a better note than that.
Yeah.
It's really a pleasure to meet you. I would love to, you know, I would hope you'd consider coming back with us as a guest some point in the future, because honestly, I have like pages more of questions that I could ask you and that I would love to ask you.
Between now and then, me and T are going to read your book, and then the next one will be even better because we'll be already there with you, so we can.
Oh, that's awesome. Any show that I can come on and drink some tea, guys, you don't have to ask me twice.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, maybe we'll just geek out about tea. All right. Good luck to you. Stay healthy. And thank you everyone out there for joining us on Tea Time. Much love. Take care of yourselves and each other. All right.
Peace.
All right. Take
Thanks,
care,
Dr.
guys.
Ken.
Absolutely. Be well, guys.